Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Gait Lenin, and today's daf is daf Ayin Aleph in Masechta Kesubos. I just want to just go over the Mishnah so we can go understand what's going on here. Just so the Mishnah is in daf Ayin, we're already on Ayin Amid Beis towards the bottom, but let's just review the Mishnah so you refresh your memory. The Mishnah is talking about a husband and wife got into a fight, basically. And Hamadir is Ishtim Alehaneslay. A person said to his wife, I'm not giving you any food. You can't benefit. You can't use my money to buy food. Now, obviously, a husband can't do that. He's obligated to support his wife. How could he make a vow to answer his wife to have to benefit from his food? The answer is that really he said to her, the Gemara said that he said to her that, look, you can make a wage and you could go out and get a work and you can keep the wages. And from the wages, you buy your own food, but don't take from my money. So really the nether is chal. But the problem is that the woman makes enough money so she can make her basic needs, her basic food requirements. But because she came from a wealthy home, she requires nice desserts and candies and fancy dishes, fancy food. So therefore, she doesn't make enough for that. So now we have a problem. How does he get money to his wife? So the Mishnah says, Yamid Parnas, a benefactor should show up somewhere and give the money to the wife so she can buy desserts, fancy desserts. But this arrangement can only last where she's getting money from a benefactor. This arrangement can only last for 30 days. For 30 days, she could put up with that. Afterwards, she could demand a divorce. That was the first part of the Mishnah. Okay, we're beginning on Ayin Amid Beis, about 7 lines from the wide lines. Ad shloshim yom yamid parnas. Okay? Hi, Alan. We just began. So the Gemara's question is like this. How is it that you get a benefactor to start supplying her with money to buy desserts, fancy desserts? Who's hiring the benefactor? The husband. But the husband made a vow that his wife should not have any benefit from his possessions. She can't buy food. So that's the Gemara's question. How does it work? So uparnas lav shlichusei ka'aved, this benefactor is not doing the bidding of it's the bidding of the husband. He's doing the bidding of the husband. So therefore, how do you get around that? He's not violating the vow of making his wife usher on all his possessions. So here's a legal loophole. Amar Rav Huna said, "Ba'omer kol hazon einam mafsid." He made an announcement. Whoever is going to give my wife food is not going to lose out. That implies that he's going to make do. Whatever it's going to cost, he'll slip the guy money. So he's not really a messenger of the husband. He's just the benefactor, but not a messenger of the husband. So the Gemara asks, is that true? When he says such a thing, isn't that not considered his messenger? But now we learned in the Mishnah, a man was in a pit, and he's about to die. We're just about 8 lines from the wide lines. I know it base. A man was in a pit, and v'omar, and he said, Kol hashemei, whoever's listening to my voice, Kol hashemei koile, whoever's listening to my voice, yichtav get lishte, write a get for my wife. I don't want her to fall to Yibam. So harei elu yichtav v'yitnu. So he didn't say who should write it. He just said whoever hears it should write and give the get. Now a get can only be given only by the instructions of the husband, and the one that eventually wrote the get on behalf of the husband is considered the shliach of the husband. So in this case also, just because the guy said kol hazon, whoever's going to support my wife, we should consider him. If a guy shows up as a benefactor, we should consider him as a shliach of the husband. So the Gemara says, Hachi hashta, how could you compare? Hasam, by the case of the get, yichtay, he told whoever hears my voice should write a get for my wife. So that's considered the message. She's the messenger of the husband. Hacha mi kama yazin. Did he tell somebody, go support my wife? If you hear my voice, support my wife. That's a shliach. But he said, kol hazan ka'amar. He said, whoever will support my wife and give food for my wife will not lose out. In other words, wink, wink, I'll pay you back. So the Gemara says, so that's not a shliach. So the Gemara says, Rabbi said, on Shabbos, let's say on Shabbos, a fire breaks out. Now you can't really ask a guy to extinguish the fire, even if it's burning down your house. You're not allowed to tell a guy to do malach on you for Shabbos. So Rabbi said that the leka, when there's a fire in the house, when there's a fire, hitiru loimer, they permitted you to say, kol hamachaba einam mafsid. Whoever's going to extinguish the fire will not lose out. So there, because b'di eved, if a guy listens to that voice and says, oh, whoever's going to put out the fire for this guy's house, he's going to pay me back. So, but on a fire on Shabbos, they gave this special dispensation that you're not considered a shliach. Lemute mai, what is this coming to exclude? It says b'deleka hitir, only by the case of the fire. My love, lemute kehagavna, doesn't mean to exclude that any other case we would consider you the shliach. This is only a loophole in Shabbos, not regarding hilchas nadarim. And says the Gemara, loy, it's a loophole everywhere. Lamute shari surim de Shabbos. But it's just an exclusion that this loophole won't work by other issues and Shabbos. By a deleka, by a fire, if we don't have a legal loophole, the guy himself will say, heck with it, and I'll put out the fire on Shabbos. So we have to give him a legal way to instruct a goy to put out the fire on his behalf. So that malach on Shabbos we gave the heter, but not by any other malach on Shabbos. But this legal loophole would work in our case, where he said, kol hazan, whoever gives support to my wife, I'll pay him back, but you're not considered my shliach, my messenger. Masav Rabba asked the question. The guy has a friend. They got into a fight, right? Like they got into a fight. Two guys got into a fight, but then they make up, And so one friend has no food to eat, and the other guy already had a nether that you can benefit from me. So what does he do? He wants to make sure his friend has food. He goes to the shopkeeper that he normally goes to. The guy that's there's the rich guy, but he can't give the money directly to his friend. He goes to a shopkeeper that he knows. And he said, "Ish plaining muda hanomi many." This guy, I can't. He's not allowed to have benefit from me. I don't know what to do with him. And that really implies, wink, wink, that if my friend shows up to the store, give him credit, then I'll pay him. I'll pay you back. So who nice and light? The shopkeeper gives the food to the other party. And then he could collect from the guy that said, the guy that wink, wink hired him. So this brisa seems to say, only in this case, such an arrangement can work. In that case, when you say kol hazan, whoever gives food to my wife will not lose out, because that's almost like you're hiring somebody. In this case, it's not like you're hiring somebody, because you're saying you didn't say the word hazan. You just say, I don't know what to do. So that's not when you consider hiring somebody. But when you say kol hazan, it means you're hiring him to supply food for your wife. So he's your shliach. So the Gemara says not so. It's not even necessary to say. You don't have to say kol hazan einam mafsed. It's certainly not the la'alma kama. The la'alma kama. That means that you didn't hire anybody. You just said it to the world, and somebody showed up as a benefactor. But in this case, you actually went to a storekeeper that knows you. Keeping the rogalets like the kamalei, and since he knows you and you come and talk to him, wouldn't that be considered command amalei zil havlei at? Isn't that considered that he's almost like instructing him? You go give my friend food. So that means he's your shliach. So that I would think that way. Kamash Mulam, no, it's not your shliach, because you didn't really instruct him to do so. You just said it in a in like you don't know what to do. And the guy understood what you meant, but you didn't hire him as your shliach. So that would be a legal way around that. Kufa, let's learn it again. Hamudra hana mechavere. The Gemara is repeating this brisa, and it says like this: someone who got into a fight with his friend and told his friend, "I'm never allowing you to take money from me and have any benefit, so I can't feed you." But then he made up with his friend, but the neder is still in place, the vow is still in place, and the friend has nothing what to eat. So we said you go to the shopkeeper that you normally go, and you tell him, this person can't have benefit from me. I don't know what to do with him. Help me out, Mr. Shopkeeper. We know each other. So the shopkeeper just supplies the food for the friend, and he can collect from the guy that made the comment. Same thing like this. If he has a house to build, or to put up a fence, or a field to cut, and they're in a fight with each other, but the friend wants him to wants to help out his friend. So how does he get around the neder he made? He goes to workers that know him, and he says to them, Ish Pliny, my good friend, is not allowed to have benefit from my possessions. But I know he needs my help now, because he needs a house to be built, or a fence to be put up, or his field needs to be cut. I don't know what to do. So they understand what he means. Hey, they go work for the friend, and they can take their wages from him, and it's not considered as if he hired them to do, and they're not considered his messengers. Says another case. Another case. A man was walking with his friend. Again, the friend, they had a fight with each other, and they can't benefit from each other. So he made a vow, I'm never giving you any money, or you can't benefit from any of my property. But the friend right now has nothing what to eat. So then they go to a third party. Someone gives it to he gives the food to somebody else as a gift, a third party. And then the guy that was usher to eat will take it from the third party and eat it. And it's mutter. So it's not like benefiting directly. They went around. They gave it to a third party, and he gave it as a gift to the intended recipient. Then ain sham acha. But let's say there is no other person. There's no third party. They're alone on the way. They usher to benefit from each other because they got into a fight, but now one of them is without food. So the one that has the food, he puts food on top of a rock, on top of a fence, and he could say, even though there's nobody around, it works. My food is hefker, it's free to take to whoever who wants. And the other ones can take it and eat it, and it'll be permitted. Rabbi Yossi doesn't like that idea. Putting it down and saying it's hefker, that's not going to work, because at the end of the day, Rabbi Yossi is concerned that maybe you didn't really mafker it. And if you didn't really mafker it, it's almost as if you're violating your vow by giving it to your friend. Amar Rava, my time with Rabbi Yossi. What's the reason of Rabbi Yossi? Gezerah Meshum, we go to Ayin Aleph and Mei, Ma'aseh the Beis Chayrim. Like the story of Beis Chayrim. The story, basically it means that we're afraid that the guy didn't mean to be mafker. Let's leave it at that. I'll tell you, if we have time, the story of Beis Chayrim later. But the guy, it has to do with a guy who got into a fight with his father and had to work around inviting his father to a wedding he's making for his son. You see, back then they also had fought, and therefore there was a whole story over there, and we were concerned that maybe his trick wasn't what he was trying to do. He didn't do with the full intention. So that's why Rabbi Yossi held, even if you mafker it, we're afraid that you didn't not mafker it with the full intention. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer b'Yisrael Ayin Aleph Amar Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer b'Yisrael Chodesh Echad. Again, Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah says, our Mishnah says that you get a parnas and you let this marriage, go on for 30 days. After 30 days, she can request a divorce. Rabbi Yehuda says she can request a reform. If it's a Yisrael, then it's after a Chodesh, 1 month. If it's a Kohen, we try to get this marriage to at least go for at least 2 months. And then because once you break up a Kohen marriage, there's no backsies over here. But in Yisrael, even if they break up and get divorced after 1 month, there's potential that they can get back together again. So the Gemara says, Hainu Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda is saying the same thing as the Tanakama. Because if you see in the Mishnah, on Ayin Amaral, the Mishnah actually said that even the Tanakama agreed that this arrangement could only work for 30 days. Beyond 30 days, she could demand the divorce and get the ksuba. And Rabbi Yehuda seems, with respect to if the guy is a Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda seems to say the same thing, that the marriage should last at maximum this way for a month. Amar Abaya said, you're right. Regarding a Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda is repeating what the Tanakama said. But the point of Rabbi Yehuda is by a kohen. This is supposed to be the word kohen. If the husband is a kohen, that's what Rabbi Yehuda is trying to teach you, that we try to make this marriage last under this arrangement for 2 months. That's what the basic point of Rabbi Yehuda. Rava says no. Rava says that there is a difference in the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda, even regarding Yisrael. According to Rava, the Tanakama holds the marriage should last at least 30 days with this arrangement. Rabbi Yehuda is coming to be more stricter and says no, that sometimes months, lunar months, are only 29 days. So if we're Jewish lunar month, we will last sometime. And he made this neder at the beginning of the month, we'll make this neder only last with this arrangement only 29 days. So there is some difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama. New Gemara. This is a very important Gemara in explaining the Mishnah. Again, a man said to his wife, look, you can't take any of my money and buy food with it. That's it. I make a neder and that's it. So the Mishnah says that we have an arrangement where 30 days the marriage can last. Beyond 30 days, she could demand a ksuba. But she commanded divorce and a ksuba. So what was the neder? Amar Rav says, Lo shanu el b'mfarsh. When do we let this marriage last for a maximum of 30 days under this arrangement where she's getting parnasa through a benefactor, is only if he said that my neder is for 30 days. So then we let the marriage go for 30 days.
But he signs the ksuba and he doesn't obey the ksuba. The ksuba says he has to promise his wife with everything.
Yes. The Gemara
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it does. But the Gemara Zok, as we're talking about a case where she can work, and when she works, she can buy her own food. Normally, if she works, she has to give the salary to the husband. The husband says, you keep the salary and you buy your own food. But she doesn't have enough to buy all the food that she needs. She needs even more food. She needs dessert. So in this case, the neder would be chal, because she has enough for food, but she doesn't have enough for the dessert. So the Rav said, Aval bestam, yotzil altav eating suba. If a man says that stam, and stam doesn't mean just stam, he just says, if my neder is for 40 days, and that you can't benefit from my food, so it's beyond 30 days, then we don't even let this marriage go any longer. Right away, we have to end this marriage. And he has to give the ksuba. Shmuel says, even if he said, I'm making this neder for 45 days, 100 days. And so still, we try to keep the marriage going for 30 days. Why? Because Shema Yimtza Pesach Lenidroi. Maybe he will find an opening in his neder. He'll be able to go to the Chacham, and the Chacham will matter his neder. So that's why Rav Shmuel says that we can let this marriage go, even if he made the neder completely with no date, even with no date. He says, you forever can't take hanoah from me. We still let this marriage go 30 days with the arrangement of a parnis, because maybe he will find a Pesach to his neder. Rav doesn't hold that Pesach to a neder is so common. Says the Gemara, they had a machlekes about this one time before, Rav and Shmuel. That now we learned in the Mishnah, Hamadir is ishte metashmish hamita. So a man said to his wife, we can't sleep with each other. We can have no tashmish hamita. Now, like Yankel pointed out, a husband has an obligation to have tashmish with his wife. It's how can he make a neder to say you're usher? But he said in a way like this: I'm answering the hanoah, the benefit of tashmish on me. So I really want to have relations with you, but if I enjoy the relations, then it becomes usher to me. And so in that way, he can make this neder take effect. So Beishamai, I remember Beishamai says shtei shabbos. Beishamai say you leave this marriage for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, there's a divorce. Beis Hillel, I remember, says Shabbos achas. The most we let this marriage go on like this way with no tashmish is 1 week. Rav says machlekes mefarish. Rav said that the machlekes is only if he expressed that he wants tashmish is also for a week or 2 weeks. Aval Bastam, if he said it, my tashmish should be also for a month, right? Then you can right away get a divorce. Shmuel says, even if he gave no time limit, he said that I'm never going to have tashmish with you. We let this marriage go on for at least 2 weeks or 1 week, according to Beis Hillel, because because maybe they'll find an opening to the nether. So Rav and Shmuel had this similar machlekes by tashmish, and now they're having the same machlekes when it comes to when he asked mezainis. Why do they have to have the same machlekes twice? So the Gemara said, tzricha. I need you to teach me that they're arguing in both cases. If it would just say they're arguing by tashmish, by he come Rav, in that case, Rav said that if you made no time limit, then you said that I'm answering tashmish forever. Rav says the marriage is over right away. We shouldn't delay efsha b'parnis because there's no intermediate, there's no benefactor that can take the place of the person to have bia with her. It's impossible. So therefore, the marriage is over at the first second this neder took effect. But in case of mezainis, efsha b'parnis, there could be an arrangement where she could get the food through a benefactor, through somebody else. Maybe he'll agree to Shmuel that we try to let the marriage keep going. If it would just say by mezainis, that by mezainis, that by mezainis Shmuel said that we let the marriage go, keep going, and stay around b'shum the efsha b'parnis, because she can solve the dilemma at least for 30 days by having a benefactor supply her food. But when it comes to relations, when a man he's not having relations with his wife, so and he didn't give a time limit, maybe he'll agree to Rav that we don't let this marriage go for another second, and that they got to end it right away. Sricha, no, even Shmuel held that you let the marriage go for a week or 2 weeks, because maybe during that time he'll go to a rabbi and it'll undo the vow. We learned in the Mishnah. Now, yeah. Here's the yisoid. The yisoid of this Mishnah is azay. This is our Mishnah, which we discussed yesterday. A man has a right to nullify his wife's vows, but only certain type of vows. 2 types. One type of vow, if she makes a neder, I'm not eating meat, or I'm not drinking wine, something food related, that's inu nefesh. A man could nullify the vow. That's the husband's right. If she makes a number 2, if she makes a neder, I'm not having relations with you, then he can nullify that vow as well. That's devarim shebeina lebeina. So the Mishnah says like this: somehow he put in effect that his wife should be also to eat, let's say, 1 period, let's say apples. Okay, how did he make his wife also to eat apples? So according to the way the Gemara is learning now, he said that if you're going to touch an apple, then you and I can't have relations with each other. So she's not going to want to touch an apple. She's not going to want to touch an apple because as soon as she eats an apple, she can't sleep with her husband anymore. So the Mishnah says, Yoitzi the ksuba, that you don't even let this marriage go for 1 day. Right away, there's a get and there's a ksuba. So how do you rectify? How come by regular food we give 30 days, and how come over here we only give not even 1 day? We let the marriage dissolve right away. So Bishlam Rav, according to Rav, I could answer the Mishnah this way: Kandastam, that this part of the Mishnah is talking about, he gave no time limit. He said you're also to eat apples more than 30 days, for 35 days, for a year. So then we end the marriage right away. And Khan, in the beginning of the Mishnah, she said that the neder should only be effective for 30 days. But according to Shmuel, it's difficult. How do you resolve the second part of the Mishnah, which says you have to end the marriage right away? According to Shmuel, you always let the marriage go for 30 days. Answers the Gemara, here's the reason why we let the marriage dissolve right away. Here is the case that she made the neder. She said, oh, what this apples I'm not going to eat. And he said, okay, I agree with that neder. Now you're usher. She made the neder. So now, why do you blame the husband? Why should he have to divorce his wife? Because Rameir holds, Ksavar Rameir. First of all, our Mishnah, the way the Gemara is learning now, the author of our Mishnah is Rameir. And Rameir holds, who the Gemara held that, right? It's not clear if he's the author, but who noisin etzba bein shineha. Since he put a finger in the mouth, in other words, he caused the whole thing. He should have nullified the neder. And the fact that he did not nullify the neder, is proof that he caused her to have this neder. Now, and the reason, the Gemara doesn't explain it yet, but we're going to explain it later on. The reason why this marriage dissolves right away is because she sees that her husband has this unbelievable hatred to him, that he was Mekayim and neder that she made in haste, that she can't eat apples, and she says, go right ahead, you're usher on apples. So she recognized that her husband has a deep-seated hate to her, therefore this marriage can't last at all, so she can demand a get, and he has to pay the ksuba because he is the cause of this dissolving of the marriage. So the Gemara says like this: V'sava Rameir hu naisin etzba ben shinah. Those Rameir hold of this concept that if a man is mekayim a neder, he ratifies a neder, a vow that his wife made, he's at fault. Well, Tanya, we learned in the Mishnah, a woman says, "I want to be Nazir." V'shama bala, and her husband heard v'lo yehefer law, and he did not nullify that neder, that niziris. Rameir Rabbi Yehuda Oimrim. He lost the etzba ben shnei. It's her fault. It's her fault. Look what he says. It's her fault. And therefore, lefikach imratza bal lehafer. If the husband wanted to nullify this vow, yafer, he should nullify the vow. But if he didn't nullify the vow, I don't want a woman making this kind of neder and becoming a nazir. She became like so verfrumpt that she's a nazir. She loses her ksuba. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda, Rameir holds that you fault her if she made the neder. You don't blame him just because he didn't make for the neder. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Lazar, who knows the nesba ben shneha? Lefikach imrotzel ba'al lahafa yapiv im ama yav shebish nadranas yotzev yitin suba. It's only Rabbi Yossi who holds that you fault him, and therefore, if he doesn't like that his wife made this neder, he could demand that he has to give her a get and pay the ksuba. So we see, according to Rabbi Yossi, we fault him, not her. And Rameir says you fault her. So the Gemara says Epoch, you turn it around. Rameir, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rameir, Yehuda says hu naisin, it's his fault. And Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Lazar Omer hi nasna, it's her fault, and therefore she loses her ksuba. So now the Gemara challenges that teretz. V'savar Rabbi Yossi hi nasna. Rabbi Yossi really holds that you blame her. Well, Tanam, in our Mishnah it says, by another part of the Mishnah, when a woman says she's not putting on perfume, Rabbi Yossi, I'm a baniyas noinasan kitzba. If she's a poor woman and the neder had no time limit, so then she could demand a ksuba right away, and she could demand a divorce right away, and he has to pay the ksuba, even though she's the one that made the neder. So Rabbi Yossi is on the team that says that's her fault. Ema says the Gemara, you have to read it this way. Rabbi Yossi, I'm hu noisin. Rabbi Yossi says it's his fault. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, I'm hinasa. It's her fault. So again, that's how we're resolving this. So now, what does Rabbi Yehuda hold? Rabbi Yehuda hold it's her fault, so she loses her ksuba. Saying to Gemara, it's true. But some Rabbi Yehuda hinasna, that's her fault, and she loses her ksuba. But now we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says that if she makes the neder, again, she makes the neder, be Yisrael, Yom Echad Yekayim. If he's a Jewish, if he's a Yisrael, not a Kohen, for one day we let the neder go, and then by day number 2, with the fruits, then give her a divorce and pay the ksuba. So we see Rabbi Yehuda holds you do pay the ksuba. You don't fault her, you fault him for not nullifying that neder. So the Gemara says, okay, you have to read it this way. Amen, let us say this way. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Aimem, Hunaisim. It's his fault when he's Mekayim a neder that his wife made. It's almost that's his fault, and if he doesn't like it, then he has to divorce her and pay a ksuba. And it's only Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar says it's her fault, and therefore you don't blame him just because he didn't make for the neder. And therefore, when it comes time to divorce, he can. If he says I can't take it, he can divorce her without paying a ksuba. Only Rabbi Lazar holds that. The imtam shalem, if you want to say zugi katani, but if you want to put two and two together, you can say actually Rab Meir, Rab Lazar, hinasna. Rab Meir holds it's her fault and she loses a ksuba. Rab Yehuda, Rab Yossi, hunaisim. Rab Yehuda, Rab Yossi says it's his fault and she does not lose the ksuba. Our Mishnah, the Hastama, this is like the rear star Mishnah, the like Rab Meir, that we don't hold that's not the author is Rab Meir. The author of our Mishnah is not Rab Meir. Okay, but the bottom line of our Mishnah again, let's read it again. That our Mishnah says that when she made the neder, right, and she made the neder, and he said, and what was the neder? She said, "I'm not eating apples," and he said, "Okay." So then so she has to keep the neder. Then she could demand that I hate my husband showed me that he doesn't like me. She could demand that he give her a divorce and pay a ksuba. So now the Gemara asks a side question. In our Mishnah, one of the cases of our Mishnah is that if a woman makes a neder that she's not putting on perfume, right? She's not putting on perfume. And she didn't give a time limit. Rabbi Yossi says that, and he says, okay, never put on perfume. So then Rabbi Yossi says that he could have been made for the neder, right? He could have been made for the neder. He could have nullified the neder. The fact that he didn't nullify the neder is proof that he hates his wife. You get a get. You have to give a get and pay the ksuba. So Alma. So we see from this Baal Motzi Mufar. Technically, the husband could have nullified that neder. She says she's not putting on perfume. Rabbi Yossi says he could have nullified the neder, so we fault her, but that's not true because the Torah because Rabbi Yossi is going to hold perfume is not considered something is in the jurisdiction of a husband to be mefer. Raminu, we'll ask you a stira. Elu devarim shabal mefer. The following are examples where a husband has a right to nullify his wife's vows. Devarim sheyesh be'ini nefesh, something that causes her stress. For example, she says, I'm not taking a bath, or I am going to take a bath with cold water, whatever. If I'm going to put perfume, I'm not going to put perfume. So according to the Tanakama, a husband could mate for those nidarim. That is something that a husband cannot mate for. That's not something, that's a private neder. Let's say she makes a neder to finish a book. The husband can't, she's going to read a book. I mean, the husband cannot nullify that vow. What is an example of inu nefesh where the husband could be made for? If she says, I'm not going to eat meat or I'm not going to drink wine, we go to Omid Beis, I'm not going to put on colored clothing. But perfume is not considered something that's in the Baal's jurisdiction to be made for. So again, our Mishnah says that she makes a neder, I'm not putting on perfume. The husband should have been made for. He has no right to made for. According to Rabbi Yossi, that's not in his domain to be made for such a neder. Answers the Gemara, our Mishnah is talking about. So it's something that's between her and here. It's not perfume we're talking about. It's actually, she says she's not going to take off here in the down below. She has a certain Rashi says certain acid that will take off the hair. And she says she's not using it. So that is considered to be like something related to tashmish, marital relations. So that's something under his purview to have been mefer. So the Gemara says, wait a second. These things are considered to be like tashmish. Elaman dioma eina baal mefer, that the baal, that's not tashmish. Ma'ikal meima. The itma we learned things that are almost sexual, but not really, actual sex. Rav Huna Oma habal mefer. The baal could be mefer. So if she says she's not taking off here, but so Rav Huna said that's in the jurisdiction of a husband, and he could be made for such an eder. So according to Rav Huna, that's how you can learn our Mishnah. But Rav Abba bar Ahava Oma eina bal mefer. That has nothing to do with the husband. He says, we never find a fox that died in his foxhole. In other words, it's something the fox is used to. This is something that she's used to, and it's nothing to do with marital relations. So it's not under the purview to the husband to be made for such a neder. So what is our Mishnah talking about? Here our Mishnah is talking about this is how the neder went. The neder meant like this. She says, I'm not putting on perfume. And if I put on perfume, then I'm not sleeping with you. So that the neder is tied into marital relations. So there, the husband should have been made for such a neder. And since he did not nullify such a neder, since she did not nullify such a neder, he's at fault. He has to give her a get and pay the ksuba. The Amra, she said, I'm never going to benefit from you. I'm not going to enjoy tashmish with you if I put on perfume. The Amar of Kahana, because that way she can make the neder, even though she's obligated to sleep with her husband, but she can say, I'm not going to benefit from it. I'm not allowed to benefit from it. And then we don't force her to do marital relations. The Amar of Kahana said, Hanos tashmishi alecha koifu mishamta. If she says the benefit that you have, if a woman says to her husband, the benefit that you have having marital relations with me is usher, we force her to have marital relations. But Hanos tashmishcha alai. But if she says the benefit that I have from having marital relations with you should be usher on me, Yafer, the Baal should be made for, because that's an effective neder, and we won't force her to have to sleep with him. We don't force her to we don't give somebody to eat something that's also to him. So the Gemara asks a question. So she tied it in with tashmish. So what's the problem? Why do we force that this marriage should end right away? Let her not ever put on perfume, and she will never become asr for tashmish. She could sleep with him as long as she doesn't put on the perfume. And Cain, that's not true. Cain people are going to call her like she smells disgusting, and she's eventually going to violate in putting on perfume. And by putting on perfume, she will not be able to sleep with her husband. So the question is, why do we make them divorce right away? So let her put on the perfume, and then she's also for tashmish. But just because she's also for tashmish, we should at least let the marriage go for a week or 2 weeks. Answers the Gemara, Hani Mili, when do you let the marriage go on? We said this over. If he made the neder, then you try to let the marriage go as much as you can. The Sabra, because she said, my husband just was a bad mood. He made a neder, so maybe he'll find a Pesach for his neder. Now that he calmed down, he'll go to the rabbi and undo the vow. So we try to let the marriage go on for as long as possible. Over here, she made a neder, it was unprovoked. And he was quiet. He said, okay, you're usher. Savra, she now thinks, he now really, really hates me, has a deep-seated hatred for me. So therefore, I can't sleep. I can't have a husband that has such deep hate to me. Therefore, we end the marriage right away. The Gemara just continues. Rabbi Yaisi, the Tama Kizba. How long could a woman go without perfume? A poor woman needs perfume, but how long is it? For 12 months. Rabbi Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Esesham for 10 years. Rav Chizda, Amar Vivi Regel. It lasts for one to the Yom Tiv. So that means that anytime the neder was for less than 12 months or less than 10 years or less than one regel, depends on each opinion, then the marriage could last. But if she made the neder for longer, if the neder was supposed to be longer than that, longer than one Yom Tiv, longer than 12 months, then we have to end the marriage right away. Uba Ashiris, but if she's a rich woman, Lamed Yom, we let the marriage last for 30 days. Why? We can't let the marriage go. A rich woman who's used to putting on perfume cannot last more than 30 days without perfume. Maishno Lamed Yom. Why 30 days? Because Amar Abaya says, she came Isha Chashuva, Nanas Reich Kishutel Lamed Yom. That means that a woman, if she put on perfume, those days the perfume was so strong that she could still smell it for the next 30 days. So for 30 days, she could last without putting on more perfume. But beyond that, if the nether is more than 30 days, that's an impossible nether for her to last. And therefore, we would end the marriage right away. But up until 30 days, she can last without putting on perfume. Previous one. Let's just do the Mishnah for a half a minute and then we'll stop. Again, a guy has a fight with his wife and he says, I don't want you to go to your father's house. So the Mishnah says, Bisman Shuhu Ima Be'ir. Let's say the father they live in the same neighborhood as the father. So if the neder is for Chodesh Echad for 1 day, for 1 month, you can keep your wife because you can ask your wife for 1 month. She can hold out 1 month not visiting her parents' home. But Shnayim, if it's for 2 months, the neder, Yoitziv Eating Ksuba. If she made the neder, you can't go to your parents' home for 2 months. So then that's an impossible neder for her to keep. And it shows deep-seated hatred for his wife. He has to give a get and pay the ksuba. Let's say the parents live in another place, in another city. So it depends. Regel echad yakayim. Shloisha yoitziv eating ksuba. So that's a little strange. But if it's for 1 yontiv, you could keep the lady, to keep the marriage going. If the neder is for more than 3 yontivs, you can't go to yoitziv eating ksuba. What about 2? The Gemara is going to talk about it. One more point. Hamadar is ishtay. A guy makes a neder to his wife. He's asks her, you're not allowed to pay shiva calls to anybody. Or lebeis mishna, you're not allowed to go to weddings, right? So then Yotzev eating ksuba. The get that's a no-no, and the marriage has to end right away. Why? The nation noyel b'fanah, because he's closing out all her social interaction, which is helps for her mental state, and so therefore if he asked her, then the marriage is over. But if he said the reason why I made this neder b'shum davar acha, because there's bad element at these places, and I don't want my wife to attend these places, Rashai, then he's permitted to make such a neder. If he told his wife, I want you to tell somebody, he made the neder, all this is hanging the neder that tashmish would be usher. I want you to tell him all the private, dirty things that you told me. Go tell somebody else. He forced her to try to embarrass her. Or tell her all the dirty things I told you. Or he tells his wife, I'm making a neder that you should fill up and empty out the garbage just for nothing. Pretend that you're insane. So these types of things are basically done. These type of nedarim are done to embarrass the wife. So then we don't give it any time that they should stay together. Yaitziv eating ksuba. He has to. We can demand him to give a divorce and pay a ksuba. Okay, it's not a happy topic, but that's the idea of when the marriage is not working out so well.
Even a bad idea.